Absolutely delighted today to welcome Richard Fletcher, the MD of Ignys, to Unprecedented Leadership. Richard, great to have you here today for the next episode of Unprecedented Leadership. I was really hoping that you could give us a quick insight into what you're all about and a little bit into why you started Ignys.
Yeah, I've been an engineer throughout. I've always been taking stuff apart. I've built a little electronics kit with my dad. That sort of ended up doing an engineering degree. I then worked at places like Marconi doing interesting R&D. And throughout all of the different places I've worked, I've noticed that engineers are in short supply, and it's quite a lot of fun solving a problem and creating a solution. So I decided to set up a business that helps other companies that don't have access to massive R&D business departments to be able to do their research and development, to be able to get their idea onto the market without having to have this permanent overhead of labs and engineers permanently there. It's also a lonely place being a single engineer. I noticed there's loads of businesses with one engineer, and that's really hard work when you're trying to solve a problem or you're trying to rely on just your own expertise. If you have a group of people that you can bounce off and talk through, you can get a better solution than one person on their own. So I set it up really to give other companies access to us. And selfishly, it means that we get to work on interesting projects and not version 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the same old thing all over again. So it keeps it interesting. It keeps us sharp because it means that we're always working on new technology. And it's quite satisfying. So when you see a product that you've done actually come onto the deal, we've got some products that we've worked on that you see a TV advert for. And I get Slack messages from the team going, just seeing that, we worked on that. That's really satisfying.
And what does leadership and being a leader mean to you?
I think leadership and being a leader, you put yourself out there, set the direction, the tone, the how we, I suppose the where we're going, and then support the team to be able to deliver that. So it's not necessarily this is exactly how we're going to solve it. This is the case of we're going over there. How do we do that? And also accept that won't be necessarily your way of doing things. It's difficult sometimes when you sort of have a fairly good concept of I want to go from here to here like this. But if you need to bring a team with you, they've got other ways of doing it, which are probably and usually better than the original concept.
And what's the best piece of leadership advice that anybody's ever given you?
I struggle with that sometimes. That I look at some of the people I've worked with and worked for, I go, I'm not going to do that because that didn't help me be my best. But I think some of the best pieces come out of COVID, really. On the sort of Mac CEO forum, working with our business coach, Matt Ball at Wiseways, that constant, here's what we're doing, here's what's happening around, have you thought about approaching it in this way? I'm finding a problem in this area, what do other people think? I think that for me it's not one single piece of advice, but it's that community of support that everyone probably has a similar problem or has experienced it before.
So you've benefited from the mastermind group.
Absolutely.
And the hive mind.
Really, it's especially useful during sort of the COVID bit where the world went quiet and you only hear the negative parts of the news. And it's very easy to convince yourself that everything's a disaster. Yet you hear that other people are, we found the demand's gone up, or this is happening over here. But we were running stats to find out who's answering the phone. Because in the absence of any other information, some information was useful. We found that during the first few weeks of the first COVID lockdown, there was about 3% of people, even the phone connected somewhere. And then it started to get more answered 2 or 3 weeks after that. And then find out that you guys were having sort of similar situations where the world just went dead was really useful.
You've touched on COVID already. I'll ask you a few questions about your experiences of the pandemic. And the first one being, what is the most important decision that you made during the pandemic?
The most important decision was not to panic, was to not suddenly furlough people and go into hiding and sort of mothball the business, but was to sit there, look at the information that was coming in, look at the order book, understand the situation that we were in, because every business was in a slightly different situation, And instead of, we got light on demand, we worked through some of the projects, and then there was no new projects coming in because understandably people were just fighting for existence at that point. But we then, instead of putting people on furlough when it got quiet, we started to do our own R&D projects. We'd always been talking about, wouldn't it be great when we get some time to do this? Well, in a way, it gave us that opportunity to be able to develop some of the ideas that we'd had because we'd gone a little bit quiet. And within a couple of weeks of that decision, things started to happen that meant we were back in demand and people could see not a clear sort of way forward, but they could see enough of the future to say, we need to do this piece of work. So I think not stopping, not panicking, and not sort of going into hiding was the best thing we did.
For me, March 2020 feels like some days a lifetime ago, and other days feels like only yesterday. I'm sure you feel the same way. Just keen to understand, now that we've had a chance to sort of look back 18 months and reflect, is there any decision that you made that you would like to make all over again and perhaps change?
Yeah, I think the key thing we got plans. March 2020, we just moved into our first proper building. And so we'd taken on a whole lot of overhead, we moved in, and then we had to move out 2 weeks later. So we didn't really get to be using the building that we're in. And the reason that we got that is to support a bunch of growth. We've got plans to double the size of the business, double the engineering, because there's so much demand for good quality electronics and software to solve problems that we were struggling with lead times. Our lead times were going out, and we wanted to make sure that we could then keep that sort of short. But because of COVID, because of all the uncertainty, we just put all of our recruitment on hold. Looking back now, I wish we hadn't, because we would have been okay and would have been in a better place today to continue sort of our growth journey. So if that the one decision that we could unwind was perhaps be a little bolder during the chaos, I think, which would be a difficult thing to do, and continue to sort of build a great team around us.
And as you look to grow now and recruit, are there any non-negotiable values or behaviours that you expect people to live by?
I think there's a couple for me. Honesty is key. I would rather, it's essential that if something's going wrong, if you've made a mistake, if it's just not going your way, don't think you've got to hide it, don't try to hide it. If we know there's a problem, then it can be addressed, it can be worked through, we can find a way, we can actually problem solve. If it's been hidden, if it's been tried to be brushed under a carpet, it will always come back as a bigger problem. So honesty is absolutely key, and that is internally and with customers. It's not, don't hide it. Problems are not there to be hidden. Product development's hard enough. It's risky enough. If there's something going on, need to know. And the other is it's like teamwork. Is that we're all good at our individual things, but when we work together and we can solve problems, we can work things through. We don't leave someone struggling in a corner and go, look at that, there's a problem over there, they're finding this really hard. It's a case of, you don't look like you're doing very well today, or what's happening? Are you struggling with this? Do you need a hand? And so it's that willingness to jump in and get things done together, not just leave somebody to struggle on.
Most businesses have talked a lot about employee well-being in the last 12 to 18 months, with a particular emphasis on the mental health side. Really keen to understand how you and the team at Ignys have coped from a mental health perspective.
So we were really conscious that before March 2020, we'd all been in the same room. We just moved buildings to a bigger place, and then we just moved out. And so we needed ways to make sure that everyone was okay, and we were still able to work together, still able to function as a team. I said to the team at one point that I would rather the business fail and we didn't put anybody in danger than us sort of unwittingly pull people together and cause either stress or illness for the sake of what we're doing. We put into place a twice weekly virtual coffee. So the bit where you miss out on the coffee, the interactions in the office, the knowing that so-and-so's dog needs to go to the vet, or knowing that there's just stuff in life, what's going on. So we put a virtual coffee, which was just time for the team to sit together on a video call and have half an hour to talk rubbish. It was great because we had topics of conversation from dinosaurs to physics to cars to the whole world of different parts to that. So those virtual coffee breaks were really important to keep us going. And we kept asking, is this getting in the way of doing stuff, or is it something that we really want? And everyone's like, no, keep it going. It's really important for us to be able to do that. We had daily stand-up meetings, which was the business side of things, the getting things done side of things. But again, everyone was together in a room and we could see it. We were using Slack for instant messaging, so we created a wins channel and a rants channel. Because when you're in the office, you can see someone's having a bad time of it, or you can see someone celebrating something because they've just got something working. For us, it can be simple as getting a little light flashing on a board, because you know it's got power, you know you've programmed it. It's a little success. And the same as, oh, what's going on? From the body language, you would know in the office. But when you're remote, you have no clue that someone's struggling on. So creating those two channels meant that we had a way of going, yes, we've had something sort of not even brilliant, but just I've had something go my way today. And the rants channel was, suppliers failed, this hasn't been delivered, the data sheet's wrong, I've cocked this up. You got a level of support and a level of sort of camaraderie around that. We've only just started unwinding some of those now because we're in the office more, and we only did it because everyone was missing the virtual coffees because they're in the office with sort of real people. And so we've now dropped that down to sort of once every 2 weeks, where we do a little company update and we carry on with the, sort of the team chat afterwards. So that was really helpful to make sure that kept people together. We've put an EAP scheme in place now, so that people can confidentially phone up and get support, because I think there's going to be a whole lot of pent-up issues from COVID, from isolation, from fears, that we're probably not the best people to be dealing with. So we've put something in place that means that all the staff have got somewhere, and their sort of families have got somewhere that you can phone up, you get some advice, get a bit of support with. I think those are the two main things that we did that made a difference.
I love the idea of the Slack channel, actually, the kind of recognising mini wins to keep everybody's energy going and the morale up.
Yeah.
And I've never heard the rant channel thing before, but what a genius idea to give people a chance to offload if they're feeling a bit lousy.
Yeah. It's that just little bits, I think, make a huge difference. And that was the idea of one of our engineers that we put in place.
Love it.
Yeah.
So it leads quite nicely on, actually, to, if you look back that, history is the best predictor of the future, that if COVID-19 has happened to us, that COVID-20 might happen to the leaders of the future in 20 years' time. If you could give those future leaders one piece of advice, Richard, about the way you've gotten through this challenge, what would it be?
The advice would be to sort of believe in yourself and keep going. Use the data that you've got to make decisions as you go, and talk to other local businesses around, because the news is always negative. There's never a positive part of the news. If we could have a slider on the news to make it sort of more positive, that'd be lovely. But there's just no positivity at all. Everyone's losing jobs or dying or being ill. You don't get to hear about the other side of it, which really colours your thinking. So I think being able to talk to other businesses around, carry on doing what you're doing, and keep a sense of what's happening. Be prepared to change if you need to, but look at it that it's not a complete disaster. It's a change to the way we have to work, and support the teams through it to make sure that they're all right. I think it's easier for some of us that have got an office downstairs than it is for someone perched on the corner of a bed on a laptop, and understand sort of the issues that everyone has when things like this happen.
Last three questions. What would you like your leadership legacy to be when you look back on your career? What would you like people to say about you?
I think I'd like to say that made a difference and did it without taking away from other people in that. So it made a positive difference to the world, I think it is, really.
And if we look at now being the new world, post-pandemic, do you have any New World resolutions?
My New World resolutions, during the whole COVID time, it became very in the minute, responding to everything. It was almost like a little mini war going on, that you're reacting to everything. I'm now trying to take myself and everyone in the business away from being on 24/7, being reactive 24/7, to having a good life balance. So we're not always on. Obviously, we're delivering and there, and be able to. I think to be able to deliver in a robust, professional way that we're enjoying doing, and supporting sort of the local community we've just put in place sort of starting our sort of corporate social responsibility journey, so that it supports the whole making a difference part of what we're about.
And then finally, any specific plans for the next 18 months?
Yeah, over the next 18 months, we are focusing on growing the consultancy side of the business. So we have recruitment plans and training plans around bringing on more engineers, bringing in project managers, bringing in more process and structure, not to get in the way, but to free up and to get rid of the level of admin that we don't need to be doing mechanically, and to set us up to be a sort of an employer of choice for engineers. So we've got variety, we've got interesting jobs, we've got latest technology to work on, but also be that partner for customers that they can rely on, so that we can be helping them get on their journey. I've got the next idea, let's go and develop it. That one's done, great, that was a success. Let's do the next one.
Richard, it's been wonderful having you on Unprecedented Leadership. Great to finally meet you in the flesh. See you soon.
Cheers.
Cheers.